Welcome back, folks. This is Larry Lonsby Jr., and this is Tales of Tezlon, my vlog dealing with anything to do with the world of Tezlon. In 1993, me and a few friends put together a mini comic, a small press comic called Freak -1. It was our first adventure in creating a comic. So, one other friend named Ben Swinson from that group, in 1995, we created Tezlon -1 and Bird of Prey -1. It was a flip book, so it was our first adventure in doing an actual comic-sized book. It was done on like normal print paper, kind of like just copy paper, and the cover was thicker. We did go through a printer. I think we did a 200 or 300 run of it. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it was 200. But Ben Swinson did the hard work of putting the book together. Since we didn't really have an idea of how the comic book industry did it at the time, we took apart a comic book and proceeded to do it. And we made a flip book. So one side was Tezlon -1, the other side was Bird of Prey -1. So this was my first like fully Tezlon introduction to the Tezlon world. Jaak Tate had appeared in Ben Swinson's Bird of Prey storyline on the second part of it, which I've included towards the end of this video. You can see Ben's work. It's pretty dynamic, and there's a bit difference between our styles. Mine was more cartoony and rough and sketchy, as his is pretty dynamic. He was a big fan of like Will Berticio and Jim Lee and stuff like that, so his style was sort of in that early Image style, which was really good at the time because Ben was one of the small press type artists in our area that was really good. And I have to say that this was an adventure, this book, since it was introduction for Tezlon for me. It allowed me to actually work on getting my inking style down and stuff like that. It was pretty rough. Back then we used like pens and nibs. And I remember Ben's pages took a long time to do too. As far as the penciling, he did pretty good and then quick on the penciling, but I know that inking took quite a while. So as far as the history is concerned, this was like the beginning of Jaak Tate's adventures when he was young, before he became like a guardian knight, a hooded crow. In this version, it just set up the storyline, which I'm revisiting in the re-release of the Tezlon comics, Chronicles of the Scarecrow, which will be a bit different. It'll include some of the aspects from this story that were in this original book that we printed. And the other flip side, the second part from the Bird of Prey story featured Jaak Tate. We kind of like did a crossover where it was in the future, where it was on Earth, and Jaak Tate had gone there through a portal. Now, some of you may know in my Astral Traveler series, Jaak Tate shows up there too. So he does teleport and go through a lot of different portals to different worlds. So he is, in effect, kind of like the Astral Traveler himself, too, where he can move through different worlds and stuff like that. So he was able to go to Earth, and he had a run-in with Bird of Prey. The storyline was to continue. I think Ben did some more pages. We never did print another issue after that as far as like the storyline. But he was to continue. They had a fight because they didn't actually understand what was going on, and Bird of Prey was a darker type hero, an anti-hero, so they both came across each other and had a battle. And they were to work together later on down the line and become allies and friends. But like I said, we never continued the storyline. It kind of, I think we did some roughs and we did some scripts on it, but it never got, -2 issue never published. So, but as you can see, these were the gritty beginnings of our venture into our first taste of doing small press comics at the time. Now I think they call them indie comics now, but when we first started doing it in the 90s, it was kind of like more issues after that. We would use a Xerox machine and put the books together, have a stapling party, and when we went to shows, we would we'd go to small press shows and we'd sell these books and stuff like that for like 50 cents or $1, I can't remember. But this was our first book. I think it did pretty well. I mean, we sold a lot of issues. I mean, it's not a major print run, but it was enough to actually get noticed a little bit. I mean, we weren't famous and we didn't make $1 million, but we told our story, and that was what was more important to me, was getting the story out there for people to check out. It was our beginnings in the comics. The stuff that we loved to do so much, and we loved reading comics. And for me, it was my kind of like my foot in the doorway for the future of Tezlon comics, because we had proceeded to go forward and publish more Tezlon comic books. And even Ben Swinson had a fantasy series called Dwarven Tales, which revolved around a couple dwarfs, main characters, and the crew that was with them. And I think that did like one or two issues. He had planned for a third issue. I don't think Ben really does comics these days, but who knows? Maybe he'll return one day to Bird of Prey and Dwarven Tales. Wishful thinking, but back in the day, Ben had some really good stuff, and so I'm pretty thankful that me and Ben met, just like me and Robert Johnson met back then in the 90s, and became really good friends. And comics were kind of like what brought us all together, and I'm pretty thankful for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed a little glimpse into Tezlon -1 and Bird of Prey -1. Eventually, I have a website, and I'll actually scan these pages and have them available for people to check out, kind of the rough, gritty beginnings of our storytelling and our learning process. So thanks for stopping in for Tales of Tezlon Episode 3. This is Larry Lonsby Jr., and I'm signing off. Thanks.